Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Gaura Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Premji Gaur Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakti Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Chamakunda Kungiri Govardhana Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Jamuna Maya Ki Jai. Ganga Maya Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai. Harinam Sankirtan Yoga Ki Jai. Riyat Madanga Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai. ISKCON Ireland Ki Jai. Go Brahmananda. All glories to the assembled.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to Shri Guru and
Hare Bol.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Jaya Hare
Jaya Vishnu Paramahamsa Bhagavad Gita Srimad Srila Prabhupada ki ISKCON Dublin Srila Prabhupada ki Nanda Vaishnava ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Kantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shishi Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 4, text and number 31. 31.
31. Share in the group.
Kim va Bhagavata Dharma.
Kim va Bhagavata Dharma.
Na prayena nirupita.
Na prayena nirupita.
Priya Paramahamsanam.
Priya Paramahamsanam.
Ta eva hyachuta priya.
Ta eva achyuta priya.
Ta eva hyachuta priya.
Ta eva hi achyuta priya.
Kim va Bhagavata Dharma.
Kim va Bhagavata Dharma.
Na prayena nirupita.
Na prayena nirupita.
Priya Paramahamsanam.
Priya Paramahamsanam.
Ta eva hyachuta priya.
Ta eva hi achyuta priya.
Kim va Bhagavata Dharma.
Kim va Bhagavata Dharma.
Na prayena nirupita.
Na prayena nirupita.
Priya Paramahamsanam.
Priya Paramahamsanam.
Ta eva hyachuta priya.
Ta eva achyuta priya.
Kim va Bhagavata Dharma.
Kim va Bhagavata Dharma.
Na prayena nirupita.
Na prayena nirupita.
Priya Paramahamsana.
Priya Paramahamsanam.
Ta eva hyachyuta priya.
Ta eva achyuta priya.
किं वा भागवता धर्मा
Kim va Bhagavata Dharma.
न प्रायेण निरूपितः
Na prayena nirupita.
प्रियाहं परमहंसानां
Priya Paramahamsanam.
त एव अच्युतः प्रिया
Ta eva hi achyuta priya.
Kim va Bhagavata Dharma.
Kim va Bhagavata Dharma.
Na prayena nirupita.
Na prayena nirupita.
Priya Paramahamsana.
Priya Paramahamsanam.
Ta eva hyachyuta priya.
Ta eva achyuta priya. Kim va Bhagavata Dharma. Na prayena nirupita. Priya Paramahamsanam. Ta eva achyuta priya.
Kim va
Kim va or
Bhagavata Dharma.
Bhagavata Dharma.
Devotional activities of the living beings.
Devotional activities of the living being.
Na
Not.
Prayena.
Prayena.
Almost. Nirupita.
Nirupita.
Directed.
Priya.
Priya.
Dear. Paramahamsanam.
Paramahamsanam.
The perfect beings.
Of the perfect beings.
Teva.
Teva.
That also.
That also.
He.
He.
Certainly. Achyuta,
Achyuta,
infallible,
infallible,
Priya, attractive.
attractive.
Translation. This may be because I did not specifically point out the devotional service of the Lord, which is dear both to perfect beings and to the infallible Lord. The dissatisfaction which was being felt by Srila Vyasadeva is expressed herein in his own words. This was felt for the normal condition of the living being in the devotional service of the Lord. Unless one is fixed in the normal condition of service, neither the Lord nor the living being can become fully satisfied. This defect was felt by him when Narada Muni, his spiritual master, reached him. It is described as follows.
Swayam Rupa Kalamariam Dadati Swapadantikam Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Nityanande Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Krishna.
So I chose that verse today because I was reading this morning this particular chapter, and this whole idea of devotion service, we've heard it from the very beginning of Krishna Consciousness, from the day we walked in the door to the day, hopefully, we'll be walking out the door, that devotional service is the most important thing. Krishna Consciousness, devotional service. I mean, it just keeps on being said over and over again. But yet, in this scenario, Vyasadeva is saying that I forgot to speak about devotional service. So, what to speak of ourselves, it's sometimes something is so obvious that you can forget it, or that you miss it. Devotional service, it's a simple word, but it's a huge concept. And it's not always easy to actually achieve. I think we notice that when we're chanting in the morning time, we may not always be thinking of, please Krishna, can I serve you, We may be thinking of so many other myriad of millions of things. Notice I said millions. I think the human living entity has 70,000 or something thoughts per day. So many of those now, many of those are in devotional service. When you start getting above 10%, you're doing well. But keep on going. But that's the whole idea that we're thinking of Krishna all of that time. All of those thoughts are to do with Krishna. And in fact, there's a certain stage in Bhakti Yoga, I think it's coming towards the Bhava stage, when your thoughts are not driving you away from devotional service. Your thoughts are you're being dragged back to devotional service because you don't want to go into all the material thoughts that are going on. You just find much more affinity in the spiritual dimension and the material dimension. Whereas initially we may be feeling it the opposite. We're just, it's kind of unusual to think on spiritual life. So that's why obviously that sadhana is very important. And it's very important that we actually do some practical activity in the service of Krishna, because a practical activity is something that we can really get focused on. We may not be able to think of Krishna in Vrindavan, while we're maybe doing some of our normal activities in this world, but when we start to do some practical devotional service for Krishna, then it can actually become very enlivening. I'm not really a great painter. I think probably people have found out that in the last few weeks. But at the same time, when I am doing the painting, it's actually you can become very focused. Because there's so many other services that one performs, not especially, but when there's positions of responsibility there, you could get into so many diverse areas, that getting visas for people, or you can go into all these massive different areas. Oh yeah, about the digger, getting a digger in, or to get the barge fixed, or something like this. You can get into all of those areas, and you do have to get focused on them when you're doing them. And the idea is that you do them perfectly for Krishna. But when you're doing something in the temple like this, like when you're painting, even if it's trying to not get a mark on the ceiling, it can be, this is for Krishna, I can get this one really right. You can actually focus much easier. But I think when Manoj was in, we were doing some painting. It's actually very enlivening in that sense, So Krishna consciousness is very simple. It's actually very simple. And I noticed that even the first day I walked in the door, I got this incredible energy when I was up a tree picking apples for the deities. When I went in, there was a place in a farm, and it had 3 or 4 acres, but there was trees out the back, and they wanted to get apples for the deities, and it was just it was an incredible experience actually, that it's suddenly a Krishna, somehow they gave me this understanding. And then I noticed in this verse no, it's not a verse, it was in the purport in Nectar of Instruction, Srila Prabhupada, it really stuck with me, that devotional service is practical activity in the foreground of spiritual life, So, practical activity, making garlands for the deities, making dresses for the deities, keeping, and this is an important one actually, this is really, really important. I could run up and down the temple room here, banging the floor, saying, keeping the temple clean for Krishna, It's something I think that we haven't really got hold of at this stage. And I think it means that we need to have 3, 4, 5, 6 teams of people either coming in once a week or twice a week, and making sure that everything is spick and span. Because I noticed even when I'm downstairs, I was trying to paint over the top of the door, and there's all this black there, and it's dust accumulated for many lifetimes. But the Krishna's, what you're trying to say, that the heart of dust, Chaitanya drop in the margin. I mean, it's there, and it is available to be cleaned, So, it's something that I think it's very important that we really get down actually. I had the good fortune to meet, I was at this program yesterday with Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj, and they were installing a deity of Prahlad Maharaj and Ananta Shesh, which, that's kind of unusual, How does that happen, But the devotees that were doing it in Sachi Kumara Prabhu and Suniti, they have a particular affiliation for those deities, and they were in Mayapur 2 years ago, and during Nishingadeva's appearance day, and they'd always worshipped the Lakshmi Nishinga, but they had said to themselves that they want to get this Prahlad as well. And of course Prahlad and Nishingadeva didn't have the Ananta Shesha open, so that's where the Ananta Shesha came in, because the deity had the Lord Nishingadeva, Lakshmi Nishinga, but then the Ananta Shesha covering them as well, which was beautiful. And Prahlad Maharaj was like this, but because he was like this because he wanted to put the garland on Lord Nishingadeva, because he's the one that was the only one who was able to do that devotional service, because everyone else was too afraid of Guru Nishinga. But I found out, I knew before that Sachikumar is he was 10 years, he was the chief for the whole South Africa deity minister there, So, and even the way I saw him doing the installation, you could see this is just completely natural for this person, And, it was so, everything was done, but it was actually, I'm going to have to say, our Abhisheks here are very, very well done as well. They're very, very nicely done, very, very powerfully done, and so it's nice to have people with that kind of ability to have them to do that. But Maharaj gave a talk on daily worship and how important it is to have that everybody should perform daily worship, and how it is, Prabhu had said, I can't remember the verse that he was quoting, Prabhu was saying that this is the way that we can purify ourselves. I think we all know that by daily worship we become purified, we purify our heart. And specifically for the householders, actually, it was said that's how that you do that. And there's so many householders, that are not living in the temple, and he was explaining, and because it was in a householder's house, and he was installing deities, he was explaining how this is very important so that we can focus like practical activity in the foreground of spiritual life in our own homes. But then he said something quite interesting, which I don't think he emphasized, but I think he wanted to say it, because it was my experience when I joined the temple, and that was that most of the devotees who lived in the temple weren't allowed to have their own deities. Well, mainly because most people lived in the temple as well. And because the main deity was the deity in the temple. It was a temple altar deity, So I'm just thinking about that. It's an important point that that for us that we establish this relationship with our deity, but also so many deities around the world we may have affiliations with. Does anyone find that? Like Krishna Balaram, or Radha Madhava, or Radha Shyam, It's like there's all these different affiliations that we have, and so this is the whole idea. It was that Maharaj was making was that the deity is a person, and there was a devotee who's cooking today there, Sham Sundar, and his wife was there with their new baby, which is well, he's not baby now, he's 1 year and 5 months or something. Rupa, I think it's Sri Rupa or just Rupa, I'm not sure, but Rupa anyway. And Maharaj is making the point that when you're going on holidays, you don't put the deity in a bag and you put them to sleep for 2 weeks. He was kind of making this point that no, you bring them with you, because there's a lot of the pastimes when they go through the airports and everything. Everyone will say, "What is this?" When people the people at the reception, or when you're going through the security, and they're asking, "What is this? What is it?" But still, they took, because Maharaj's deity was with Satchikamar, because he had a Giri Govardhan deity, but now Satchikamar worships him, because he was his servant for 10 years. So he was saying all the adventures that he had, bringing the deities through the different customs and all of those securities and whatever. And but that you treat the deity as a person, that it's a person. So how do we get that mood? How do we get that mood? Well, obviously, because some of the deities are so powerful anyway, that they immediately have that, they have that influence, they have that effect, that power on you. But it's also because you worship the deity properly. Does anyone know where I'm going with this? Anyone know where I'm going with this? So this is something that we do have to establish here in our temple, is that we start to, somehow or other, every day one person takes, or whatever it is, and they were saying in South Africa that there's 260 pujaris. And so Maharaj's other servant, it was the head pujari in Soho for 4 years. Seems to go around with his head pujaris all the time. But he said many devotees are there in Soho, 100 and something anyway. There's a fight to worship the deities, just to do an arti, Would you like that problem? I don't know. If there's a fight, actually, to have that. But I thought about it as important. It's very important, because, and I talked to Satchikamar afterwards. It is extremely important that we don't just have deities just because, here's the deities, here we are, we have deities, here they are, and then you don't worship them, or you stay away for many days and you don't think of them, and you come back, here's the deities again, So I actually asked him, I'm sure there's plenty of scriptural references in that whereby you don't, you see the deities for what they are and who they are, you know. And he said he's going to do a little study for us as well, so that we can see how that we can build this energy, you know, that we can actually worship Krishna. And Krishna is the most important person ever, you know.
There's a book, Prabhu, deity worship book.
Is
It has
there?
everything, all the references.
Oh, I see. And that's why we compile that, you know.
Prabhupada's book.
Okay, okay.
I
So,
have it.
oh, excellent, excellent. So you're going in the right direction. that's really, but it's important that we understand that as well. I'm saying it also in the context that certain people, they may not have that as their prime, you know, their prime idea, that devotional service being practical activity. I know in Inishrat we used to have the inside pujaris and the outside pujaris. The outside pujaris would be driving the barge, you know, digging the lake, digging the ground or whatever. And then the inside pujaris would be doing something different, you know, would be always looking after the deity. So, and then of course you have the book distributors and people who are working for a living and then supporting the deities. You know, because supporting the deities is supporting the temple is also vital. Because, and I'm also getting around to another point here, and that is that a lot of people don't have that as a natural thing. You know, it's not natural, especially, well, a lot of people from the West wouldn't find that so natural initially. Initially they don't, but, you know, at the same time, the deities are so powerful that they can go straight through. Radha Govinda were like that for us. You know, it was like, you know, out of the blue, actually, my first experience was of Radha Madhava in Dublin, and you could tangibly feel the whole temple completely changed when they appeared. Before that, we had Nitya Satyananda, who's on the altar on the initial, and they were powerful. That was the first deities I've seen. But then when the introduction of Radha Madhava it was like another sphere, basically. The Radha Madhava, they're in Leicester now.
No, but they were in the altar, yeah?
No, they were in a farm, not Lion House. Yeah. No, they were moved. It was great. I mean, there was a great endeavour to bring them there. But then they were moved in 1994 to Ireland. So it was a big loss in one sense for them, but it's also restored. They shouldn't be moved. So yeah, you know, it can be dangerous for spiritual life when that happens actually. So we should be always very careful. Think, what is it, 100 times? I know Ma Mantra keeps on saying that to me all the time. Think 100 times before installing deities, because she spent the last 30 years in that kind of mood of trying to look after deities when you're trying to get visas for people, you're trying to ring up everybody frantically to do this, to do that. Or oppositely would be to lower the standard. And there's some of the biggest deities in Europe have had very, very low standards at some point, you know. So therefore, that's really the whole area that I'm getting at. We have to really think very, very seriously here how to build up the whole energy so that we can actually to worship Krishna properly. Because although it's said that Panchatattva don't take offense, or you know, the picture of they don't, it's just Kirtan. But that's not what the deity minister said when he came here, isn't it? Yeah, he had a completely other idea. He was talking about Mangal Arati, Evening Arati, and you know, yeah, it was a two abode arati. Yeah. So like these are the standards that we're trying to get to. But anyway, these are just kind of practical activity and programs, virtually like devotional service. We should spread this devotional service out far and wide. And there was just ideas that I was getting when I was doing the painting around, that we at least need to get teams in here to make sure the temple is clean. I mean, the toilet downstairs is, you know, it's really not something to be, you know, to even talk about actually, unfortunately. But this is the standards that we need to really to get towards. Okay, I'm not sure if that was exactly on program. Is there any comments, any questions? I think we're going to start fairly early today.
Yeah, Prashadam is ready anyway.
Okay. So I
we
just
have to do Paran from yesterday.
pardon.
Yesterday was Ekadashi, so we
Oh,
have
yeah.
to also break out fast.
Oh yeah, that's right. What time?
We are in the time.
We're still in time. Okay. Okay. The other thing I wanted to talk about, the daily is meditating on Krishna. So we're in the Bhagavad-gita. We're at we're in the chapter 11, which is the universal form, and so Arjuna asks in the 46th verse, and I want to read these verses. If you want to follow it, it's 46:11, and I'm just going to read the English of them. Chapter 11, text 46. O universal form, O thousand-armed Lord, I wish to see you in your four-armed form, with helmeted head and with club, wheel, conch, and lotus flower in your hands. I long to see you in that form. Text 47. Supreme Personality of Godhead said, My dear Arjuna, happily have I shown you by my internal potency the supreme universal form within the material world. No one before you has ever seen this primal form, unlimited and full of glaring effulgence. Maybe we could all read a verse, because I'm going to read till the end. Would you read an English verse? 48.
The translation?
Translation, yeah.
O best of the Kuru warriors, no one before you has ever seen this universal form of mine, for neither by studying the Vedas, nor by performing sacrifices, nor by charity, nor by pious activities, nor by severe penances can I be seen in this form in the material world.
You have been perturbed and bewildered by seeing this horrible creature of mine. Now let it be finished. My devotee, be free again from all disturbances. With a peaceful mind, you can now see the form you desire.
Sanjay said to Dhritarashtra, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, having spoken thus to Arjuna, displayed his real four-armed form and at last showed his two-armed form, thus encouraging the fearful Arjuna.
When Arjuna thus saw Krishna in his original form, he said, O Janardhan, seeing this human-like form, so very beautiful, I am now composed in mind, and I am restored to my original nature.
The Supreme Personality of God had said, My dear Arjuna, this form of mine you are now seeing is very difficult to behold. Even the demigods are ever seeking the opportunity to see this form, which is so dear.
The form you are seeing is represented as cannot be understood simply by studying the Vedas, nor by understanding serious penances, nor by charity, nor by worship. It is not by seeing me that one can see me.
My dear Arjuna, only by undivided devotional service can I be understood as I am, standing before you, and can thus be seen directly. Only in this way you can enter into the mysteries of my understanding.
My dear Arjuna, he who engages in my pure devotional service, free from the condemnation of brutal activities and mental speculation, he who works for me, who makes me the supreme goal of his life, and who is friendly to every living being, he certainly comes to me.
So I was making the link between devotional service that Yasudev was talking about, that's what he was lacking, and this verse here, my dear Lord, my dear Arjuna, only by undivided devotional service can I be understood as I am. And then the next one, he who engages in my pure devotional service, free from the contaminations of fruitive activities. So, but you can see how it's linked here to the form, you know, how that the whole idea of the form of God is there as well. How that continuously is a major factor for us. For people who meditate, you know, they try to meditate on some void or something like that, and it's not, they cannot do it, it's impossible. But the whole idea, like our whole temples, is the form of God is there, you know, and they're constantly trying to get us to see Krishna as he is, and this is what Krishna is doing here to Arjuna. And Krishna even showed Arjuna a ghastly form of the universal form. But finally, he brought him back to the four-armed form and then to the two-armed form of Krishna. So all our temples are full of the forms of God, of Krishna. And so all our meditations are going in that direction. By devotional service, we're trying to serve, as we can see, Krishna's form. But it's not just Krishna's form, obviously, it's Krishna's form, name, form, qualities and activities, you know, and qualities and pastimes. And these are the aspects of devotional service that we have to bring to the forefront in our lives. And the whole system that Prabhupada has set up of practical activity and devotional service is specifically geared for us so that we can perform activities which are beyond the modes of material nature, beyond the material platform. When we study the living entity, even the human form is such a powerful form. The human form actually has, you know, 80 billion. And not even just normal neurons, specific neurons going on in the brain. And each of those has got 10,000 different links, which is going on with different pathways that it forms. So this is just the human brain. But what's the human brain doing? It's keeping the body going. It's keeping itself going. It's keeping the heart going. It's keeping the blood going. You know. Oh, I mean, should I say, this is not just the human brain, but this is what the body is doing. But this is going on simultaneously while we're here, digesting masses of things that are happening, and we're not even aware of it. You know? But even on a more subtle level, what are we doing? We're creating our future karma. Every one of us here is creating something totally tangible, our next life. That's what we're doing, even as we're here. So this, what we're in, this vehicle that we're in, it's so incredibly potent, you know. And yet that's only one tiny living entity, you know, which has a minute potency up to 78% of the divinity, but only to a minute degree, whereas the demigods would have 78% in that sense to a high degree, which is Lord Rama, who's got intelligence in billions of universes, you know, not just one universe. Well, he is a universe, but he has the potency to understand all the billions of universes that are going on. So we have a completely potent structure here in our own physical form. But beyond that, there are so many incredible spheres of activity that can happen. But the devotional service, which you can perform with the physical senses and mind, has the potency to stop that activity to go on and to perform pure devotional service, you know, with the spiritual mind and spiritual senses. That is the real the goal. That's the real gift that we have, and that's what Vyasadeva is explaining, or which Narada is explaining, will explain to Vyasadeva, and what we're doing in this Krishna Consciousness movement. We have that ability to go beyond all of that with what the physical, you know, body is doing in matter, in creating all this future karma. It can create the spiritual body, or we can purify. All the desires are there, but those desires become purified by devotional service. So this is a great, as I was saying to one of my friends here, this is a great team to play for. It's the best team ever, you know, the devotional team. And if we can do it conjointly. You know, if we, Prabhupada says, your love for me will be shown by how much you keep this living together after that. He wants us to do all of this together, you know, and the more that we can actually spread out, bring more people on board on this, you know, the more that this can actually have an effect in society. And so again, I'm bringing in this point because even in my experience, the thing which has been the most negative towards that happening is that the living entity is not getting on, you know. That has been my experience. It has a very, very, very difficult effect. And my other experience is that offences are the things which prevent as well. You know, we chanted that because I wasn't here, but there's been 10 offences I'm chanting, and to blaspheme to the ones who dedicated their lives, and so on. You know, it's such an easy thing to do because we're in society. You know, we're in a society. Do you know about this? And you know, I won't get into it. You know what I'm talking about. And it's so easy to get into that, and it's so easy to get into that. But that's the very thing which is uprooting your kripa, you know, your bhakti kripa. It's the very thing which is preventing you from actually getting that, you know, bhakti kripa working, you know. And so that's another factor which is going on in our lives. And the material energy is war against the material energy. Don't ever think it's not a war. It is. It is a war, you know, and there's a constant pull, and that's how Maya has one or two different tricks, either through someone from the, you know, either putting the man or the woman, you know, in there that usually becomes distracted. Maya does it every time, you know. What's Haridas Thakur famous for? Even Maya did yourself. Couldn't distract him because he was engaged in his chanting, you know. But so many, Prabhupada says in one of the purports, so many persons have become a victim to these allurements of money and women or the opposite sex. So many people have been victim, Prabhupada says. And then he goes on to say, it's not unusual for somebody to be something like unsettled, because we've been in here since time immemorial. This has been going on from time immemorial. But bhakti and chanting the holy name is the only method by which we can become purified. And there was a young person who was telling me yesterday, yeah, but association of the bodies is more important. And I was like, yeah, you're right there, you know. But we have to keep the association very, very sharp, you know, and also that you know that is the simultaneously to be as Prabhupada was this incredible example of merciful, but strict, you know. These two things were just going on all the time with Prabhupada, you know, and he wanted it that way because. Anyway, I won't go on to explain why he wanted it that way because there is so many reasons. But that is the real art, you know. That's the art, especially in the community, to have that art of community, you know, to keeping everybody on board, but at the same time being strict, but at the same time being aware that, you know, we're not always 100% whatever. And so to keep that there, you know what I mean? It's so vital. We have to be able to keep people in Krishna consciousness, because the difficulty, I've seen it both ways, you know. A lax society, that's more like Ireland, laid back. A lax society, everything goes on and there's no potency. But if it becomes over strict, then it has you know, people become afraid and you have to do this, I have to do, you know, and it's not coming. Bhakti is love. It's coming from love of God. So that's the creeper. That's because you'll find that's what if people want to do something and if they love God, there's nothing will stop them from doing it. They'll even go through fire you don't have to tell them, you have to do this, you have to, no, they'll just do this, they'll do unbelievable things because of the power of God. So they're the areas that I wanted to get into, but I'll just say, finish off, the next chapter after this, seeing forms of God, is devotional service, the 12th chapter. So that's the one that we're going on next. So that is the real, another one of the real beauties of Krishna consciousness. Okay, I actually want to stop there. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Just praise Prabhu.
Jai.